So, and there's lists. There's lists downstairs in the clerk's office of the town committees that don't have representation.
Right. What I would say is, what I've seen in the time I've been here in Georgetown is that there'll always be people who will just be, it's never happening, from my point of view. But there also, what I saw with that school building vote, when I saw the huge numbers of people who came out on that evening of all walks of life in Georgetown, it wasn't just the school people who came and supported that. I think about the tours Terry and I did, and people came and they saw it and they asked questions. All those people put up their little blue flag, which told me that, yes, they weren't putting money on the table, but $720,000 was a big ticket for the voters of Georgetown to approve, even if 50% of it was being reimbursed. So that tells me that if people understand the need and people are educated about it, and we have some responsibility, we've been talking about maybe we need to do a question of the day on our website so people tune in every morning with their coffee. Okay, what's the information the schools are putting out today in answer to questions that the public is reading? Because the more educated people are, this is great, you came tonight, you asked questions, I bet you learned things you didn't know, or that you were hearing rumors about maybe out in the town. It's always good to go to the source. We answer our email, I answer my emails daily. Some of you may have got emails from me at 2 a.m. That's a big deal for me. We will answer your question and we'll give you the accurate information, and as will the committee. Every one of the emails that the committee has, they respond to. So I think it's a matter of, if we know what kinds of information that the public needs, we know what we need to share. We need to use this next month as a time to get a lot of good information out for people. Not because I'm trying to persuade people to raise their taxes, but because I want them to make whatever decision they make with the facts, right? And with the most education that they can get about the issues. Because school budgeting is very complex.
Yes,
like if we showed you the budget, you'd be like,
You don't want to
what
see
does that mean?
You
Right?
don't want to see
But I can tell you what every
Right.
line means, and I can tell you
Right.
what we're doing with every line. But it wouldn't be intuitive to a member of the public to just pick up the budget and say, oh, I get this. I see what they're doing. I see
Right.
exactly how it's going to work. That's why it's our responsibility to respond. But if people don't ask us, we don't really know what it is they need to know.
Right.
Right. And it's just for the younger families in town,
Sure.
it's disheartening that we moved to this town because of the school
Right.
system.
Right.
I mean, when I moved here, I wasn't having children, but I ended up with a child. But I moved here because that was an option
I moved
for
here in
me.
2002. But I had a 2-year-old
98
and I was
moved
pregnant.
here.
Well,
So-
you know what? I wouldn't want people to lose faith. There's a lot of good things going on in the schools. Can we get better? We obviously can. And do we use every dollar, I think, as wisely as we can? Yes. And, somehow we do have to figure this out, because we do have a structural deficit problem that somehow has to be fixed.
It has to be fixed.
Right, and my concern is that, so maybe the stars shine and we fix it.
Right.
But next year, it's going to be the same thing.
Well, next year is a whole nother ballgame with the new school. Next year will be the
We'll
new
take
school
the new
vote.
school out of it.
Well, you can't. You can't take it out of it. It is an elephant in the room, if you want to call it that, because there are people who say if you do an override this year, you'll never get the new school. There's other people who say if you don't do an override this year, you'll never get the next one. It's a battle that we're going to have to fight for the next at least 2 years.
I think you raise a good point, though. Who's making the decision? How is it all coming together? We've been asking that same question, and I think that's what's sort of lacking, is this concerted effort on the part of the town to sort of pull whoever has to be involved in this together to say, what's the long range plan for the town?
Right.
So it's not survive every year.
Right, well,
because
that's
what you're
what I'm-
talking about,
yeah.
right? We're surviving every year, but every year that we're surviving, and this isn't just true for the schools, it's also true for the town departments. We take a little chunk,
We're
we
losing.
shift the money onto sort of revolving accounts or other sources, and then those become unstable because they
Right.
can't handle it. So there's a lot of things that have been done to survive.
Right, and that's why I mentioned, either the plan for either a big override now and a big override,
Right.
or scheduled, smaller debt exclusions over time. But some people in the town have to come together to decide what the town needs to be, and
maybe more economic
So
development will
who are
happen.
those people, I guess?
everyone.
They.
I think it's I think it's parents. I think it's retirees. I think it's families who live here who are working but don't have children, young and older. I think it's a cross section of everyone that lives in town. it can't be just the parents because
Right.
we're
Right.
23% of the group.
Right, right.
So there's only so much that just the parents can do. We have to really talk to our neighbors who are older or younger, who have children who don't, and try to get as many people involved as we can.
One of the things that I had a parent of ours who had lived in another state and had seen, how they had worked taxes, and sometimes you can do your taxes at different levels, right? So there's a school tax, or so some of the senior citizens who are worried about surviving on the fixed income and really for whom a tax increase would be a real hardship. So I think there's that kind of discussion that has to happen at the town level in terms of how do we meet the needs of all of our citizens, and yet improve the
Right.
condition of the town for everyone.
Right.
I believe we had that last time.
Like Dave.
Matt Vincent?
Yeah, Matt had
He
suggested
looked into something like that, but the town never acted on it.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, those are the kinds of discussions that towns
Right.
can have, so that it can respond to the different needs of the various constituencies in town.
And how would we get that conversation going? Like, who do you, I'm confused on who to have that conversation with,
Board of
because there's so
Selectmen.
many
I think
committees.
that's where you start.
I
You
think
start with the Board of
I think Board of
Selectmen.
They
Okay,
meet on
They
Monday
meet Mondays.
nights, and they're actually meeting next Monday on the 14th. So you might be able to drop a note maybe to Phil Trapani, he's the chair, and ask if they can either take that up as a discussion item, or
I'm sure they have a
Several
public
I'm sure they do have a
item on the
public
agenda
section.
like we do, where the
Okay.
public can speak on an item.
all right, thank you.
you're
You're
welcome.
welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Hi, Michelle.
I just wanted to answer a question that she brought up
Okay.
about getting involved, and I'm on the Georgetown Education Foundation, our president's here, but I don't even know if you're aware of that group, but we're a group of concerned parents, just like you all are, that volunteer our time. And if you don't want to get on the Economic Development Committee or some other committee in town, just go on our website, georgetowneducationfoundation.net, and we meet monthly, and not only do we do fundraisers, but we worked on the last override that unfortunately didn't pass, but we will be focusing on that again as soon as our fundraiser is done on
And they're
March
donating
19th.
$28,000, I
To the
believe, to
schools
the
this year.
schools
Are
this
always
next
looking for
Saturday at the
people to
gala.
join,
Right.
and
Which
we
is-
would welcome anybody that wants to help us. 'Cause
That'd be
we'll
great.
Trying to help on the override.
We
Thank you to the
absolutely
GEF.
encourage everybody to, I'm Gloria McGavro, I'm president of the Education Foundation, and we absolutely encourage every parent to get involved in some way, because the more money we raise for the Education Foundation, the more money goes right into the classroom. That $28,000 is all going to teacher grants, and it's for things that they're not in the budget. I mean, they can't be in the budget. We have no technology in our budget. That's how slim it is. So there would be no smart boards or projectors or any of that kind of thing if it weren't for organizations like the GEF and the PTA. So it's a great way to get involved.
It really is. Are there any other questions? Hi.
Marie Katzen from 50 West Main Street. This isn't entirely budget related, but a concern that I had from a parent that does not live in Georgetown but wants to choice her child into Georgetown was told, yeah, we're not even making that decision yet. Is that true? Like something is happening that they wouldn't be allowed to choice in, or because why
Most
would?
likely.
But
Honestly, choice right now, we are still active in choice. We have students who have choiced in the past years who are here, and we are responsible for their education until they graduate. However, because of the population in Georgetown, which has increased year by year by year, I think all but 2 grades are closed for choice because we don't have space. We have to make sure that we have room and books and desks and everything for the kids who live here first.
Okay.
The law
law-
is very specific.
And we don't,
Yeah.
we report to the state in May.
We do.
Is
May
when we
1st
make
or
May
something.
1st, we make our recommendation to the state whether or not we will be accepting new students, if we'll remain open. Remain open but not accepting anyone new. There's several different criteria you can sign up for.
So even though that actually brings money in,
It
Yeah.
doesn't,
It's
it doesn't
capacity.
bring,
Wow.
it does bring some money in, but it doesn't, the money that we get does not cover the cost of educating one student. The money we spend in Georgetown is approximately, $8,900 a student.
It's a little higher now.
Yes, a
Okay.
little higher now.
little
Okay,
over
say
9,000.
somewhere around $9,000 a student. We get less than 6.
Yeah, 5,410.
how much do we pay out when students choice
Depends on where they
out?
go to.
Depends on what
Yeah.
district.
It's based on a sliding scale based on how much the town spends per pupil.
Per-
And we are
per
second to last in the state
Right.
in per pupil spending, so we are very, very low on that scale. I think the most they give out though is 7.
Yeah, but for the most part, I would say any student that choices out of Georgetown is, we're probably paying more.
More.
Oh, we are paying more than
Because
the
it's the
state.
cost of the
So
district.
does
they're
that,
going.
has anyone taken that into account when, I know you can't take that account into the budget, but in just general conversation about, I mean, I think we mentioned it a couple weeks ago at school committee meeting, being from the preschool, and a tremendous number of families considering private
Right.
or trying to choice out. Like, is
Right.
that considered in the conversation?
Well, that will definitely impact the
Yeah.
town's budget.
It
It will
will
impact
impact
the
the
town's
town's
budget in a
budget.
very, I mean, it doesn't impact the school budget in the sense that the school budget is not responsible for paying for the kids that choice out, the town budget is. But, you know, if they're paying it out, it's coming from somewhere, and you can
Right.
bet it's coming from our
Yeah,
budget.
It's tricky because if we say, we used to have capacity, we used to have space. At one point, we had 69 students that choiced in. And then as the population has grown, right, we haven't had the ability. Usually people like to come in at the middle high school age. That's generally
Right.
where we would see. Every year, I can tell you, unsolicited, we would receive 50 applications, we still do, of children that wanted to come in to the district for choice. And as Ann's saying, every year we have to determine, are we going to be a choice district or not? But we look at all of the enrollment, and I think what we're always mindful of, as well as we understand money's coming in, and it has benefited us. We now have 39 students, so you can imagine it, let's just round it off at $5,000 a student. That's a pretty significant decrease in revenue.
Right.
The problem is with choice is you don't want to get caught in a trap of putting things, like let's say we wanted to save 3 teachers and we put them on choice. The problem is if we lose children, we still are on the hook for the cost of those teachers, but the account doesn't have as much money. So usually what you do with school choice money is you buy one-time expenses, right?
Right,
So,
you buy technology,
let's say
curriculum.
so that's the safest way to do it. The problem is that we also have to be true to the Georgetown families who believe that their children should be educated in reasonable class sizes. So while we can always squeeze 10 more kids into the high school, we don't want to be in a situation where the Georgetown families who pay taxes in Georgetown say, well, what are you doing? Why are you putting my child in a class of 30 when they could be in a class of 22? So even though it is the allure of it is that it's a good way to, you know, bring revenue into the district, but it only works if you have capacity.
Right, okay.
Okay, does that help with?
It helps. I think this particular family was not explained that. I mean, I know just one explanation. It was told, yeah, you don't want to send your kids here. It was basically the gist of it. And it
Well,
kind
that's
of,
true then.
I was thinking of it as, you know, does it really like, I wasn't thinking in terms of capacity.
Yeah.
But, you know, I quite honestly have thought about choicing my children out. And it is still a very real possibility in my head. And I once wondering if that whole conversation is happening, that maybe people choicing in isn't even going to be an option anymore, because honestly, why would someone want a choice here if these budget cuts go through? But I just needed a better explanation about how it all worked, because it seems
Yeah.
like if people wanted to come in and it brought in money.
It's not as, it's
But
not as
if
simple
we're
as it
cutting
sounds.
teachers, it makes sense too. That there's not
Yeah, I
capacity.
mean, that's what we were talking about, the kindergarten, remember? And we were talking about making a kindergarten reduction, and we were looking at the number, right? Remember we said there's 92 students, right? So 92 divided by 6, or 92 divided by 5, those numbers are, you know, still in the 18, 19 range, right?
Which
So
is-
that's
yeah.
the only reason we're looking at a cut at that level. We don't want to cut anybody.
Right.
But if we were trying to look at cuts that might be less impactful,
Then choicing,
that's-
yeah.
that's-
No, that makes
that's-
perfect sense. I just
okay.
didn't know that, like, that's been a very nebulous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, glad you're
Good
asking the
question.
question. Good
Thank
question.
you.
Awesome, thanks.
Okay, we have time for a couple more, and then we have to move on to our regular meeting. So Joy, come on up, please.
Joy Richards, Hillside Drive. I just have a few questions about the budget. 2009, you got the stimulus money, correct?
2009, we were awarded it, but we didn't receive it.
Yeah, in 2009,
It's
That's a
very
story in
complicated.
itself.
that's a story in itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
In 2009, some of what the money that was actually intended for this fiscal year was taken to fill in a gap of a reduction in state aid in that particular year, in Chapter 70. And then the $1 million that we were awarded, the committee spread pretty much equally over 2010